The palace had not always been quiet. Once, its halls had echoed with laughter, footsteps, and the low hum of machinery. Courtiers from across the galaxy had gathered there, sharing news, stories, and sometimes even arguments. But today, the palace seemed abandoned, as if it had forgotten the sound of life. The high, sweeping ceilings reflected only silence, and the walls, usually adorned with shimmering lights and moving holograms, now held only faint flickers. In the grand chamber at the heart of the palace sat the queen. She was unlike any ruler the galaxy had ever known. Her skin shimmered with the faint glow of her planet's twin moons, her eyes held the calm of centuries, and her presence commanded respect without a single word. Around her, machines whirred softly, managing the palace's climate, security, and communications. They moved with precision, but there was no warmth in their motions, no hint of life beyond programmed duty. And yet, in this palace of quiet perfection, there was one who did not belong, or rather, one whose presence was different. Aaron, a human, stood silently near the queen's chamber, his posture straight, eyes alert, and hands resting lightly on the straps of his simple weapon. Unlike the alien guards, who followed their schedules with perfect timing, Aaron moved with awareness and caution. Every shadow, every flicker of light, every subtle sound had meaning to him. He had been chosen for this post, not because of his strength or his size, but because of something the aliens called a human's unyielding vigilance. Humans, they said, did not rely only on instructions or technology. They observed, learned, and acted when others hesitated. This quality had saved lives in countless battles and had earned him the honor of guarding the queen, a position no human had held on this planet before. Aaron's eyes scanned the vast hallways as he walked slowly, boots making soft sounds on the polished floors. The corridors were lined with statues of the queen's ancestors and glowing panels showing the history of the planet. In the past, these halls had been filled with conversation, music, and debates about governance. Now the lights flickered in the dimness, and the only sound was the faint hum of the palace's life support systems. A sudden vibration beneath his boots made Aaron freeze. He glanced toward the source, a small maintenance drone moving too quickly along its usual path. It was harmless, yet Aaron's instincts were already on alert. On a planet like this, silence was never simple. Something always waited in the quiet. He walked past the throne room, pausing briefly to glance at the queen. She did not look up, yet Aaron felt her awareness like a soft wind brushing against his mind. She had been quiet since the palace had fallen into this unusual calm, and Aaron understood that her silence was not weakness. It was patience, observation, and trust. She trusted him to notice what others would miss. Hours passed in the same quiet rhythm. Aaron moved through the halls, checking entrances, watching monitors, and listening to the subtle differences in the hum of machinery. Sometimes he spoke softly, asking the palace systems for status updates or alerting the queen's chamber when a door opened farther down the hall. But no one answered. Not a single guard moved on their own initiative. The palace had become a machine of stillness, and Aaron was the only living variable. Then, without warning, the palace monitors flickered. At first it was only a single screen, a deep blue field with strange symbols that made no sense at first glance. Aaron's heart quickened. He leaned closer, analyzing the signals. The aliens would have ignored this. Their systems were programmed to filter anomalies, but Aaron understood what this might mean. An approaching ship. Not any ordinary vessel, but one that did not match the known fleets of nearby stars. He moved to the main observation deck, a high platform overlooking the palace's landing fields. From here, he could see the vast expanse of the planet's atmosphere, shimmering under twin moons, and the fields where ships usually arrived. And there it was, a vessel unlike any he had seen before. Its shape was jagged, almost organic, yet its surface gleamed with advanced materials that reflected the planet's moons. It hovered silently, cutting through the thin air with a slow, deliberate grace. Aaron's mind raced. This ship did not send signals of diplomacy. It did not respond to any standard codes. Its very presence was a threat. The alien guards, he knew, would do nothing. Their programming allowed only defensive protocols against known enemies. The Queen had trusted humans precisely because we could think beyond the instructions given. He returned to the Queen's chamber. "Your Majesty," he said quietly, bowing slightly, "we have an approaching ship. Unknown origin, unknown purpose." The Queen's eyes finally lifted from the glowing panel in front of her. She studied him calmly, her gaze steady and unreadable. "I see," she said in her soft, melodic voice. "What do you intend?" "I intend to remain vigilant," Aaron replied, "and to act, if needed. Your safety will not be compromised while I stand watch." She nodded once, a slow, deliberate movement. "Then stay, human. The palace may be quiet, but the world beyond is not. Trust your instincts as I trust you." Aaron felt a surge of determination. His duty was clear. The alien guards would remain frozen in their routines. The Queen could rely on him, and whatever threat approached, he would meet it head-on. As night fell, the twin moons rose higher, casting long shadows across the palace floors. The alien courtiers, long deactivated for the current period of calm, stood frozen like statues. Only Aaron moved, pacing quietly. Checking every sensor, watching every shadow, he did not allow fear to take root. Fear was a luxury humans could not afford. He relied on focus, awareness, and the certainty that loyalty was a shield stronger than any weapon. Hours turned into cycles. The ship outside did not move closer, yet it did not leave. Strange pulses of light and faint vibrations hinted at its presence. Aaron studied these signals, interpreting them, predicting patterns. He tested palace doors, monitored energy flows, and even adjusted the timing of the lights to create a pattern that would confuse any intruder attempting stealth. The palace had been quiet for a reason, and Aaron intended to keep it that way. Suddenly, the quiet was broken. A faint click echoed in a far corridor. Aaron's heart jumped, but he did not run. He approached slowly, listening. Another click, then a whisper of movement. Something, or someone, was inside the palace. Aaron drew his weapon, not with anger, but with readiness. He understood that a human's greatest strength was not raw power, but adaptability. The palace's emptiness worked to his advantage. Shadows could hide intruders, but they could also hide him. He moved silently, step by step, toward the sound, feeling the air shift as the intruder approached. And then, for a moment, everything paused. The palace seemed to hold its breath. The Queen remained calm, her gaze fixed on him through the chamber's monitors. Aaron's own senses were sharp, every instinct screaming awareness. The quiet was no longer merely silence, it was the prelude to action. Aaron realized something that no alien guard could comprehend fully. The palace could be quiet. The Queen could be still, and the world outside could be unpredictable. But as long as a human stood watch, vigilance would never sleep, and he would not allow anything to breach that trust. The part ended with Aaron standing tall in the dimly lit hall, weapon ready, eyes scanning every corridor, and the unknown ship still hovering above the planet, a silent storm waiting to strike. The palace remained quiet, but the human did not. And in that quiet, a single truth shone brighter than any machine or weapon. Loyalty and courage could never be programmed. The quiet of the palace was broken by a deep hum that vibrated through the floors. Aaron's head snapped toward the observation deck. The unknown ship above the planet had begun to descend slowly, landing on the main platform outside the palace gates. Its surface gleamed with dark, shifting panels that reflected the twin moons like liquid metal. There was no signal of communication, no identification code, no gesture of greeting, only the feeling of danger. Arin's pulse quickened, but he did not move hastily. He had learned long ago that fear and speed could be worse enemies than the threat itself. He ran through his options. The alien guards were frozen, their programming not allowing improvisation. The Queen's chamber, though secure, relied on him. Everything depended on his judgment now. From the observation deck, he could see figures emerging from the ship. They moved smoothly, their forms partially cloaked. Yet there was something unnatural about them. Their bodies seemed both solid and fluid at once, like living machines. Their eyes, or the glowing sensors on their faces, fixed on the palace with unspoken intent. Arin took a deep breath. He had no reinforcements. He had no allies nearby. And yet, he had something stronger than either of those things: human ingenuity and courage. He returned to the Queen's chamber. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing slightly, "they have landed. Unknown entities. Their movements suggest purpose and skill beyond any we have seen." The Queen's voice was calm, almost serene. "And what do you intend to do?" Arin glanced at the monitors, then at the secure exits leading into the palace. "I intend to delay them, to confuse them, to keep them from reaching you until a plan can be formed." The Queen nodded. "Then act. I trust your instincts, human. The palace may be quiet, but your actions will make it alive again." With that, Arin moved swiftly but silently. He knew the palace better than anyone. Hidden corridors, emergency doors, concealed stairwells, all of these were paths the intruders would not expect. He had spent countless hours learning the palace, not as a building, but as a living map of opportunities. The first intruder reached the main doors. Arin had set the palace's entry systems to react in a subtle, confusing way. Doors that should open refused. Floors shifted slightly, creating subtle vibrations. The invaders paused, scanning for weaknesses, unaware that they were stepping into a carefully crafted maze. Arin followed from above, moving through hidden pathways with ease. He observed their coordination. It was impressive, precise, but rigid. Their thinking followed logic and order. Unpredictability was their weakness. Humans thrived in unpredictability. He smiled faintly. The Queen had chosen wisely in trusting him. The intruders split into groups, attempting to enter through multiple access points. Arin used the palace's emergency defenses. Not lethal, but highly effective. Automated barriers rose, lights flashed in patterns to confuse their sensors, and small compartments released harmless but immobilizing nets. One intruder lunged at a corridor entrance, expecting an easy passage. A net shot out, wrapping them tightly. Another tried to override a door lock, only to trigger a silent alarm that flashed confusing codes across the ship's sensors. Each intruder began to realize that the palace itself was working against them, not aggressively, but in ways their technology could not predict. Arin moved from vantage point to vantage point, always unseen. He relied on sound, light, and timing to guide his actions. Every step was deliberate, every shadow used as cover. In his mind, he mapped the palace like a battlefield, predicting where the intruders would go next. Meanwhile, the Queen observed silently from her chamber. She had always known that human courage was more than bravery. It was adaptability. Watching Arin, she saw not only loyalty, but creativity. No machine, no alien program could anticipate his choices. The intruders, realizing the palace itself was a barrier, began to communicate among themselves. Their voices were low, mechanical, almost inhuman. They coordinated attacks, moving through corridors with precision, Yet each effort met with subtle resistance. A floor panel shifted beneath them. A doorway locked at the wrong moment. A light blinded their sensors temporarily. The palace was quiet, yet it fought back in hidden ways. Aaron paused briefly at a junction, listening to their movements. He could hear their frustration mounting, their reliance on technology faltering against the human mind. He adjusted his course, moving silently toward a chamber that would allow him to observe their leader. He needed to understand them, to find a weakness. The intruders were not ordinary raiders. They were strategic, patient, and strong, but they had one weakness that humans always exploited: rigidity. They expected a pattern, a plan, a predictable path. Aaron was none of these things. He improvised constantly, and that unpredictability became his weapon. He placed a few small devices along the corridors, simple machines by alien standards, but effective. Lights that flashed unexpectedly, small noise generators, panels that created temporary obstacles. Every device slowed the invaders, making them question their assumptions. Aaron did not need to defeat them outright. He only needed to delay them, to protect the Queen long enough to turn the situation in their favor. Suddenly, one intruder appeared at the top of a stairwell. Aaron held his position, remaining hidden in the shadows. The intruder's sensors swept the hall, glowing faintly in the dim light. Aaron remained perfectly still, counting beats, waiting for the exact moment. When the intruder moved forward again, Aaron triggered a panel nearby. A low vibration ran through the floor, and the intruder stumbled slightly. In that moment, Aaron dashed past, silent and swift, moving deeper into the palace. He reached a secure observation chamber overlooking the throne room. From here, he could see the intruders' positions and the paths they were taking. He realized they were dividing, attempting to corner the Queen. One group moved directly toward her chamber, while another scouted the main corridors. Aaron's mind raced. He knew the Queen could defend herself with her own technology, but she relied on his presence. Humans, he thought, were not only fighters, but protectors in ways others did not understand. The Queen had entrusted him with her safety, and he would not fail. He activated another set of defenses, carefully timing each one. Doors that should remain open closed, pathways twisted slightly, panels released harmless energy pulses to slow their sensors. Every move was precise, every decision calculated, yet spontaneous enough that no algorithm could predict it. The intruders paused, realizing that their progress had slowed. Frustration and confusion replaced confidence in their plan. They exchanged signals, but Aaron could see that their communication was rigid, slow, unable to adapt to the fluid environment the palace now represented. At that moment, the Queen spoke, her voice calm but firm. "Aaron," she said through the secure channel, "your efforts are noted. Continue. I will remain here, undisturbed, as you protect what is precious." Aaron nodded silently. Her words were encouragement, but also confirmation. The Queen's calm allowed him to focus completely, using every skill a human could offer in the face of superior technology. Hours seemed to pass in minutes. The intruders made small advances, but Aaron's constant vigilance turned their confidence into hesitation. Each time they thought they had an advantage, the palace itself betrayed them with hidden obstacles. Aaron was everywhere yet nowhere, unseen but present, moving with a purpose that no machine could replicate. Finally, one of the intruders attempted a direct assault on the chamber. Aaron anticipated the move, activating a subtle barrier and guiding the intruder into a harmless containment field. The others rushed to assist, but the palace had already shifted the environment to slow them. Confusion rippled through their ranks. Aaron moved silently behind them, ready to intervene if needed, but he did not strike. He had learned that humans could do more than fight. They could delay, distract, and protect without unnecessary conflict. The palace remained quiet, yet in that quiet, he controlled the battlefield. The part ended with Aren standing at a high vantage point, watching the intruders regroup. Their arrogance had been shaken, their technological superiority was no longer certain, and the queen, calm as ever, remained secure, trusting in the human who had proven that courage, ingenuity, and loyalty were weapons stronger than any laser or shield. The palace remained quiet, but Aren did not, and the unknown threat outside would soon learn that one human, standing vigilant, could make all the difference. The intruders were regrouping. Their dark, shifting forms moved back to the landing area, emitting low mechanical clicks and pulses that echoed through the palace corridors. They appeared calm, yet their rigid coordination betrayed unease. Every wrong turn, every failed approach had shaken their confidence, and none of it was by accident. Aren watched them from his hidden observation post. His mind raced, planning the next steps. The queen's trust in him was not blind. It was based on the human ability to adapt, to improvise, and to see solutions where others saw only obstacles. That adaptability was now his greatest weapon. He moved quietly along the hidden pathways, checking sensors, adjusting defenses, and preparing the palace for what was coming. The intruders had underestimated the human. They thought technology alone could win the day, but humans had a quality that could not be programmed: unpredictability. As he reached the lower levels of the palace, he set a series of subtle traps. Nothing lethal, nothing that would harm the queen or her loyal subjects, just carefully designed obstacles to confuse and slow the invaders. Small doors that would lock unexpectedly, floor panels that created vibrations, walls with light sequences that disrupted their sensors. Each one was simple, yet effective. He paused at a corner, listening. One intruder was moving ahead, scanning for life signs. Its sensors swept the corridor, and Aren held his breath, pressing himself against the wall. The intruder paused, its glowing eyes sweeping the hall. Then it stepped forward and triggered one of Aren's traps. A soft, immobilizing net shot out, wrapping the figure before it could react. Aren remained in the shadows, moving only when the path was clear. Through the palace's monitoring system, the queen watched silently. She did not need to speak. Her calm presence guided Aren's confidence. He could feel it, like a quiet stream of assurance flowing through him. Humans could act alone, but they thrived when trusted and observed by those who understood courage. The intruders were smart. They quickly adapted to the traps, but not fast enough. Aren had already calculated their possible paths, and every choice they made led them deeper into the palace maze he had created. He was not simply defending, he was controlling the battlefield. He moved to a vantage point overlooking the central chamber. From here, he could see the lead intruder communicating with the others. Their movements were sharp and precise, yet predictable in their logic. Aren smiled faintly. Predictability was weakness. He activated another series of palace mechanisms. Doors that should have opened remained closed. Hidden stairways shifted slightly, guiding the intruders into narrow corridors. Lights flashed in unexpected patterns, confusing their sensors. Every time they advanced, Aren had already anticipated it, countering with simple yet effective measures. The lead intruder stopped, sensing the pattern. It scanned the hallways, its glowing sensors flicking rapidly. "They are clever," it said in its low, mechanical tone. "But one can be outsmarted. We will divide, attack, and overwhelm." Aren moved quietly along the perimeter. The intruder's strategy was straightforward: divide and conquer. But humans were skilled in thinking beyond logic. Aren set another trap, a subtle obstacle designed to lead them toward a dead-end chamber. He waited silently as one group moved forward, their confidence high. Then, at the precise moment, he triggered the mechanism. The floor panel shifted, the lights flashed, and the intruders found themselves trapped in a containment field designed for emergencies. He observed them through a small surveillance monitor. Their confusion was evident. They had expected the human to act predictably, to follow a path they could anticipate. Instead, the palace itself had become a labyrinth, guided by human intellect. But Aaron knew this was only the beginning. The intruders were powerful, intelligent, and determined. A simple delay would not be enough. He needed to create a clear advantage, a moment where their rigid thinking would fail entirely. He returned to the Queen's chamber. "Your Majesty," he said quietly, bowing slightly, "they are contained temporarily, but they will attempt another approach. I intend to lead them into a series of traps that will neutralize their coordination entirely." The Queen's eyes glimmered with approval. "You have done well, Aaron. Continue. Use the palace as both shield and weapon. Your human advantage is clear. Remember, they expect logic. Give them unpredictability." Aaron nodded. He moved quickly, setting the final sequence of defenses. This time, he focused on the main corridors leading to the throne room. He arranged the palace systems to create delays, redirect intruders, and confuse their sensors. Every corner became a point of opportunity, every shadow a possible advantage. Then he waited. Patience, he knew, was as important as action. He listened to the hum of the palace, the faint clicks of the invaders as they regrouped, and the quiet reassurance of the Queen's presence. The human mind could endure long periods of tension, and Aaron was prepared to use every second to his advantage. Hours passed. The intruders finally made a move toward the throne room. Aaron observed from above, noting their formation, their weaknesses, and the slight hesitation in their steps. They had power, but they lacked creativity. They relied on superior technology and rigid strategies, while Aaron relied on adaptability and instinct. He triggered a subtle mechanism. A set of doors closed unexpectedly, guiding part of the intruders into a containment corridor. Lights flashed, creating a temporary blind spot for their sensors. Another intruder, attempting to bypass a locked door, triggered a floor panel that shifted beneath it, slowing its advance. Aaron remained unseen, a shadow guiding the flow of the battle. The lead intruder realized the palace itself was being used against them. It communicated with the others, but Aaron had anticipated this. Each of their commands triggered responses that misled them, caused hesitation, and created openings for human advantage. Finally, the intruders attempted a coordinated strike. They moved toward the throne room with precision, but Aaron had already prepared the final sequence. He activated the palace defenses in order. Doors closed to isolate groups, lights flashed to disrupt sensors, and panels shifted to slow their advance. In a matter of seconds, the intruders were separated and disoriented. Aaron moved through the shadows, guiding them into containment fields and securing the area. He did not strike directly. Humans were skilled not only in combat, but in strategy. By controlling the environment, he turned their strength into weakness. The Queen observed quietly. "You have done more than defend," she said through the communication system. "You have taught them that power alone does not guarantee victory. Adaptability, courage, and loyalty are equal forces. Continue, human." Aaron nodded, adjusting a few final mechanisms. The palace had become more than a building. It had become a testament to human ingenuity. Every hallway, every door, every shadow was now a tool in his hands. The intruders, for all their power, were trapped in the very environment they had hoped to control. As the night deepened, the intruders paused, realizing that their approach was no longer effective. Their confidence had been shaken. They had underestimated the human standing watch. Aaron remained vigilant, every sense alert, every decision calculated, every shadow a potential advantage. The part ended with Aaron standing tall in the throne room's observation chamber overlooking the palace that had once been quiet and still. Now it was alive, not with movement, but with the presence of a human mind guiding it. The intruders would not advance further without facing the full measure of his ingenuity, and the queen, calm as ever, remained secure, her faith in humanity proven once again. In the silent palace, one truth shone brighter than any technology or weapon. Human adaptability, courage, and loyalty could turn even the most advanced threat into a manageable challenge. The intruders had regrouped, their dark forms gathering at the palace's outer platform. They had learned caution from their failed attempts, but caution had slowed them, not eliminated their threat. They moved with precision, ready for a final strike. Their sensors scanned the palace, looking for any signs of weakness, but the building itself was now a fortress shaped by human ingenuity. Aaron stood in his observation chamber, calm but alert. He had anticipated this final assault. The traps, the shifts in corridors, the subtle barriers, they had all been preparations, leading to this moment. The palace was alive, not with machines, but with strategy, guided by one human mind. From the queen's chamber, her serene presence reinforced his resolve. She had watched, observed, and trusted him throughout the ordeal. That trust was more powerful than any weapon. It reminded Aaron that his duty was not only to defend her body, but to protect the symbol she represented, the dignity, intelligence, and unity of her people. The intruders moved forward, their sensors flicked, searching, calculating, yet their rigid logic failed to anticipate the adaptability of a human. Aaron had studied their patterns, their strengths, and their weaknesses. He knew how they would respond to pressure, how they would attempt to regroup, and how their overconfidence would become their undoing. He activated the first stage of his plan. Doors that should have remained open suddenly locked, isolating small groups of intruders. Floor panels shifted, creating vibrations that disoriented their sensors. Lights flashed in complex sequences, temporarily blinding their vision systems. The intruders stumbled, their precision faltering under the subtle chaos of the human-engineered defenses. One intruder attempted to bypass a locked chamber. Aaron was already there. A simple containment net, harmless but effective, immobilized the figure. Another intruder reached for an emergency override, only to find the control panel disabled by a clever sequence of commands. The human mind had created complexity that technology alone could not decipher. Aaron moved quickly through hidden corridors, placing final devices in strategic locations. They were not weapons of destruction, but tools of delay, confusion, and misdirection. He guided the intruders without being seen, his movements precise and deliberate. He did not fight blindly. He fought with intellect, intuition, and courage. The lead intruder, sensing the palace itself was opposing them, sent a pulse through their communication network. "Adapt or fail," it said in a mechanical tone, almost like a challenge. "We will overcome this human advantage." Aaron smiled faintly. Adaptation was his greatest skill. Humans thrived where logic alone could not succeed. The intruder's technology could predict and react to patterns, but humans could improvise. They could see opportunity in unpredictability, and that unpredictability would be their undoing. He positioned himself near the final corridor leading to the throne room. This was the last line of defense before they could reach the queen. He had created multiple layers of confusion, doors that shifted, lights that flashed, floor panels that vibrated, and subtle devices that disoriented the invaders' sensors. Every advantage he had built over the past hours would now be used in a coordinated sequence. The intruders advanced, unaware of the traps awaiting them. They moved with determination, but each step triggered a calculated delay. Small groups became isolated. Confusion spread among their ranks. Their precise mechanical movements faltered under the unpredictable chaos created by a human mind. Aaron waited for the exact moment. He triggered the final sequence. Doors closed to isolate the intruders into small chambers. Lights flashed to disrupt sensors, and floor panels created subtle vibrations that unbalanced their footing. The palace had become a labyrinth, guided not by programming but by intelligence, courage, and the instinct to protect. One intruder attempted a direct approach, pushing through a corridor. Aaron stepped into view, calm but ready. The intruder paused, its sensors scanning, but it hesitated. Humans, it realized too late, were not just physical beings. They were unpredictable, resourceful, and fearless. "Your strength will not defeat me," Aaron said firmly. "You may have technology, but you cannot match loyalty, courage, and the will to protect what is precious." The intruder lunged, and Aaron reacted with agility, dodging and guiding it into a containment field. He moved silently, leading others into the traps he had set. The intruder's final assault began to collapse under their own inability to adapt. Their technology, powerful as it was, could not overcome the unpredictability of human action. Through the palace monitors, the queen observed the final moments of the confrontation. "Well done, Aaron," she said softly. "You have shown them that power alone is never enough. Loyalty, courage, and ingenuity are equally strong forces. You have protected not only me but the honor of this palace and its people." Aaron nodded, continuing his vigilant movement. He did not celebrate, did not lower his guard. The intruders, now disoriented and trapped in separate chambers, had no clear plan. They attempted to regroup, but every path they chose led to a delay, a trap, or confusion. The human mind had turned the palace into a fortress, and the intruders were ensnared by their own expectations. Hours passed. The intruders' energy began to wane. Their movements became slower, less coordinated. Aaron's patience and planning had turned the tide without unnecessary confrontation. The palace, once quiet, now resonated with the presence of a human mind shaping every action. Finally, the intruders realized their position was hopeless. Their arrogance, their belief in technological superiority, had been shattered by a single human standing watch. They retreated to their ship, moving carefully, defeated not by brute force, but by intelligence, adaptability, and loyalty. Aaron watched as their ship lifted from the platform and disappeared into the night sky. The palace returned to stillness, yet it was no longer lifeless. The queen, the people of the palace, and the very walls themselves bore witness to the triumph of human ingenuity. He walked slowly back to the queen's chamber. She looked up at him, her eyes reflecting calm approval and quiet pride. "You have done what none could have expected," she said. "Not with weapons, but with courage and thought. Humanity's strength is in the mind and heart. You have proven it here." Aaron bowed slightly. "It was my duty, Your Majesty. I only acted as I was trained, and as my instincts guided me." The queen smiled faintly, a rare expression of warmth. Instinct, courage, and loyalty, these qualities are sometimes more powerful than armies and technology. Today you have shown why humans are respected across the galaxy. The palace, though quiet once more, seemed to breathe with a renewed sense of life. Courtiers and guards, long frozen in programmed stillness, began to stir. The queen's presence was secure, and the palace's honor remained intact. All of it had been protected by one human who refused to yield. Aaron returned to his post near the observation deck, standing vigilant as always. The twin moons reflected on his face, showing determination, patience, and unwavering loyalty. The palace had been quiet, but he had kept it safe. He knew that vigilance was eternal, that threats could arise without warning, and that humanity's role in the galaxy was more than survival. It was protection, innovation, and courage in the face of overwhelming odds. As he looked toward the stars, the queen spoke one final time. You have reminded us all that even in silence, even when all seems still, courage and loyalty endure. You stand as an example of humanity at its best." Arin's eyes remained on the horizon, yet he allowed a small smile. Humanity had triumphed, not through technology alone, but through heart, mind, and spirit. The invaders had been defeated, the palace preserved, and the Queen's trust honored. And in that quiet palace, one human had proven that even a single individual, guided by courage and loyalty, could shape the fate of worlds. The night returned to calm. The palace was quiet again, yet alive with the presence of those who had witnessed human strength. Arin remained vigilant, a sentinel who would stand watch over the Queen, over the palace, and over the ideals that made humanity respected across the galaxy. The story closed with the understanding that while technology, power, and numbers could impress, it was loyalty, courage, and human ingenuity that truly protected what was most precious. And in a galaxy of endless possibilities and threats, one human standing watch was a force no enemy could ignore.